this video, I'm going to talk about a client that I've worked with over time, actually, and they're currently in a relationship that doesn't feel good, basically. And she keeps being drawn to this relationship because of underlying beliefs that she has about herself. And these, as we've worked through this, are able to track it back to when she was about 4 or 5 years old. And her father was one of her greatest teachers, and I'll explain that in a moment. In this current relationship that she's in, she wants this man to love her, adore her, take care of her, treat her in a special way that helps her feel like she is special. And as we have questioned and looked at the different beliefs that came up, in this one particular situation, they were going to exit a back door and wanted to keep it propped open. So she suggested that they put a small stone there, and her boyfriend went crazy, just off the deep end, yelling, arguing, and her immediate reaction to this was, "What have I done?" So she wanted to take the blame on herself for what he was feeling and how he was reacting. The truth is, it had nothing to do with her, what his response was, only what her response is. So as we took a look at the feelings, what was reflected back to her in that moment when he became explosive over what seemed like such a small thing, she felt that he made her feel stupid, that he made her feel like she was dumb, incompetent, helpless, and like she's drowning. And we decided to look at the thought that she had, "He makes me feel like I'm drowning." And as we question whether that was 1,000% true, what she came to see was it wasn't true at all. And when I asked her how did she react to what happened in that moment, she just had all these images and physical feelings and started crying, and it was very emotional. And I took her back to a moment in time, her earliest memory of when she felt like she was drowning. And it was a time when she was sitting by her father's desk, just waiting for him to pay attention to her. And both he and her mother would give her this same look that the boyfriend gives, that caused her to feel like she had done something wrong and that she was just drowning in this and couldn't help herself. And other beliefs came up out of that instance when she was between 4 and 5 years old, that she's not good enough, she has to die, she's not worth living, and a host of other things. And as we took a look at those and kept asking whether, especially in the situation with her boyfriend, if she were to look at that same situation where she merely made a suggestion to put the rock in the door, and now she's observing that situation. She's no longer that same woman. She's watching this couple. She watched the woman make a suggestion to put the rock in there to keep the door propped open, and this boyfriend goes off. And she realized in looking at it from an observer viewpoint that she's simply a woman observing this man raving and ranting for what felt like an inexplicable reason. And she realized she had done nothing wrong. She merely made a suggestion that seemed smart to her, a way to keep the door propped open so they'd have an easy entry. And she also was able to look at this boyfriend very clearly in that moment and see that he had something going on inside of himself that had absolutely nothing to do with her. Where she came in, that woman, where she came into play was when an old belief about herself got triggered, that I'm stupid, I'm dumb, I'm incompetent, I'm helpless, I feel like I'm drowning. She was able to understand that it was her who was saying these things, these beliefs to herself, and these are underlying beliefs that she carried. So when we got to the point of looking at that same statement, he made me feel like I'm drowning, from other perspectives, she was able to see that in her mind's eye, she made him feel like he was drowning. She wanted to squash him and bury him in that moment when he's raving and ranting at her, drown him out of her thoughts in that moment. And she could see how he hadn't actually made her feel like she was drowning. He just simply raved and ranted, asked her if she thought he was stupid and incompetent. He never said anything about her drowning. And then she was able to see how she said, he makes me feel like I'm drowning. She told herself, I'm drowning. I'm drowning in all this flood of emotions and beliefs that I'm doing to myself. He never said, I'm going to drown you. He just simply went off on a tangent asking if she thought he was incompetent and did she think he was stupid, that he couldn't think the same idea for himself. He never said, you're drowning. She did that to herself. And the clarity in that moment of seeing what it is that she actually was doing to herself was huge. It was this tremendous release and relief. And the same when we tracked it back to that first time she had that feeling when she was around 4 or 5 years old, she could see in that moment, nobody in that situation, her father hadn't said anything to her. He simply stoically ignored her, basically. And so she took that belief on herself. And that belief began to run her life in an unconscious way. And it showed up in many, many different situations throughout her years. And now that she has recognized that she is the one who's doing it to herself, she's able to pay attention to the next time she gets triggered and see what is reflected back to her about herself, so that she can pause for a moment and question whether that's what was really said, or is that what her own self is telling her. And then she can find out whether there's truth in that or not. I welcome your feedback, comments, and questions. Feel free to comment below and I will answer as quickly as I can. And I will keep posting videos similar to this with different situations, different beliefs, and maybe some of these you'll relate to yourself. And with the way I explain, perhaps you too will be able to see the truth of your own beliefs and find out that they're really not true. See you next video.